Hello guys, today we are going to see how to build this website. This is going to be the first part of the website, and the first part of the website is the model building, or we can say a schema of the website. And if you want to explore this website, you can check out my previous videos. So now let's explore. So before making a website, we have to take care of many things, which include how the data is going to be flow. If you have the clear idea about each and everything, like what your website is going to do and what is your problem that you are going to solve with that website, then you can easily figure out these things, this model building and all these things. So the first step of the model building includes finding the users that are going to be in your website and then searching how these users will interact with each other. If you have find these things, then you can easily make the schema of the website. For example, here we have two users, student and worker. And student and worker, or we can say a warden, will interact with each other through the request schema. And OTP schema is here for the validation, like for forgetting the password and creating an account. So I have these four schemas that I'm going to use in my website. So now let's explore this schema. So first we have the name. Here we will store the name of the student and email of the student and phone number of the student and registration number of the student and block number, room number and password. So once the data is been stored in the database, it will give us the unique identity, right? Which will help us to identify that student uniquely in the database. So after that, student have to create a request. So for creating a request, they need to fill some basic details, which include work type, what kind of a work they want from the worker to do. For example, a cleaning, AC service, and many other. And request date, on which date this request need to be served, and what is the free available time of that student. And this will help us to identify that this request is being accepted by any worker or not. And this will tell us if this request is accepted by whom. And status will tell us the status this request is being completed or not completed. And student identity here will help us to identify that this request is being generated by the student. So after that, these requests will be moved forwarded to the worker and the warden. And here's the main part. In between, the filtration will be done because we do not want that all the requests are going to all the warden and the worker. Here, the filtration are done on the basis of the block number. So we want that student belong to block A request goes to the worker and a warden belong to the block A, right? And so this is going to be the schema of the worker. It includes name, email, phone number, block, and is available will help us to identify that this warden and worker is absent or present today. And this role will help us to identify that this is worker or warden. If it is a warden, then these things will not be in use. Worker code, worker type, and total number of accepted requests. So we are using a warden because sometimes if a worker forget to accept or not able to do some operations, the warden can do these things for the worker. He will assign the some work to the worker by himself, right? And worker will have these things work code which will help us to identify that this worker has accepted this request. So when this worker is going to serve this request in the room of the student, he and she has to share his work code. Then that request will be converted into the complete state, right? And this work type will help us to identify that the type of the worker. So the request also filtered on the basis of the work type also. And total accepted request will show and help the worker to find how many requests and in which room and which place he has to serve. And so this is the schema of our website. And yes, there's one more OTP which we will be going to use for the validation and verification part. Okay, so let's begin to code. So before making a backend and creating a model, we have to install this packages in this server folder. So first I will make this server folder, then I will go into that folder, then I will install this all the packages, and later on we will know what this package is and why we are installing it. Okay, let's begin first. So after installing this all the packages and doing this all the stuff, we will go to the server folder and create one file name called server. Now let's begin the code. Sorry, I forgot to tell that we have to install one more package called npm install node-mon. This one, install it also, and then come to the server folder and make one new file called .env. Right here, port port 3000, and then come to the server file. Write require .env .config, and it is used to load the environment variables from a .env file into the Node.js application. This is useful for securing storing sensitive data like APIs keys and database credentials. So next, we are going to import the express.js package. Express is a web framework for Node.js that helps create and manage web servers. Next line, it initializes an Express application instance. This is what we will use to define our routes and handle requests. Okay. So now we are going to define our port. Okay. Using process.env. Here the process.env object fetches the value of process of the port variable defined in the env file. This one. That ensures the server can run on configurable port. Okay. So finally we are going to use app.listen port, comma. This function makes the application listen for incoming request on the port specified by the port variable. Inside the callback, we log a message to confirm that the server is running and specify the ports it's using it. Okay. So next part, we are going to build a model. So building a model, go to the server folder and create one new folder called models. Well, we have to connect our server to the database. So before that, we have to go to the .env file and type this whole URI inside that. And it defines the connection string for a MongoDB database. The string specifies that the MongoDB server is located on the local machine at this IP address and listen on the default port 27017. The specific database is to connect to is named as Hostel Helper. By setting this is an environmental variable, the application can surely access the database without hard-coding the connection details. So next, go to your server folder and create one another folder inside that, name it as utils. Inside the utils, create one file called db.js. In this folder, we are going to write a code that will help us to connect our server to the database. After creating a DB, you have to install one more package name called Mongoose. And this Mongoose, which is a library for working with MongoDB in Node.js, it simplifies tasks like defining schemas and managing the database. So we are going to import this. So next line, we are going to use this URI. This ensures that the sensitive information like database credential is not hard-coded in the source code. So now we are going to create one function, connectDB, and we are going to make it as a async function. And inside that we are going to create a try catch block. This console.log will help us to know that there is an error in connecting the database. And the same kind of a console.log we are going to use in the try block also, that will help us to tell that we have successfully connected to our database. So now we are going to export this connectDB to our server file. So now let's go to the server.js. So now we have to import this connectDB here. Now let's try to run this server. So you can see that we have successfully connected to our database. And about this line, first it will try to connect with the database, then it will run the server. So now we are ready to build our models. So the first model that we are going to create is the OTP model. So first we are going to import a Mongoose. So now we are going to create a OTP schema. So now we are going to create a OTP schema. So you have seen in this video earlier that in our OTP schema, we have the four things: email, OTP, attempt, and created at. So now we have to write those. So email is going to be a string. OTP is also going to be a string, and attempt is going to be a number, and greeted at is going to be a date. And this will help us to expire this OTP after 10 minutes, or we can reduce the time. You can change it here, and this will help us to tell when the OTP is being created and when it has to be expired. And this attempt will help us to identify how many times the user has entered a wrong OTP. So next model we are going to build is a student schema. Create one new file in a models called student. First we are going to import our Mongo's. Then we are going to build a student schema like we have earlier built a OTP schema. So now you go back to my previous video and try to build this student schema yourself. And there in the previous part of this video, you will find what are the fields are there in the student schema and what are their type. Write yourself. And if you are not able to write yourself, you can continue to watch. So now we are done with building the model of the student schema. And now we have to create a model also. So first go to your OTP, then type here. So now we have created the schema, this one, and model of that schema, and then we are exporting this model to use anywhere that we want to use. And similarly for the student, we have created the schema, and now we are going to create this model also, the student here. So this is our student model and the schema. So in this, we have name, email, phone number, and registration number, and block of that student, and registration number and password. I told you earlier why we are using this block, because by this we are going to apply the filtering in the later one process also. So the next model we have the faculty model, and we will going to copy this because the faculty model have this some things common in it. paste it here. We are going to remove this part because faculty do not have registration number, and instead of that we are going to write is available. Instead of this we are going to write is available. Instead of this we are going to write is available. Then we are going to write a role also instead of a room number, and this is going to be a string required to, and enum is kind of the value inside this role can be warden or worker. Apart from this, any other data is coming in this role, it will lock it. Okay. And now the error is also gone. Role after we required is absent. Then we also have to write a worker code. Then after worker code, we have to write a worker type. And this will be required if this role is worker, this role is worker only, then this won't be required for the warden. And this is going to be the array of, and similarly other also we have to move this array. Okay, let's trace. Everything is done. We have to change this instead of student. We want it to be faculty, and same here. This is faculty schema. Na? So the next model that we are going to build is a request schema. First, we will import the mongoose. Then we will build the schema. So in the previous part of the video, you can see like what are the fields are there for the request schema. First, we have work. So that's it. We are done with the building of the request schema. Now we will build the request model. So here the work is going to be the type of the work that the request for. For example, it can be a cleaner, carpenter, AC, and etc. requested is the date at which the work request has to be served. And this is going to be starting time and end time at the time at which the student is available, and this will tell us that the request is accepted or not by any worker. So by default it will be not accepted, so we have done it as a false, and this will tell us who accepted this request, and this status will tell us that this request has been completed or still in the pending state. And student ID will help us to know that this request is being created by this particular student. Okay, that's it about this video, and we will meet in the next part of the video. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe.